So he said the non-holy dirt is to think you're nothing, which to Jewish people is like spitting in God's face because he's who made you amazing. How you're so amazing is from God. 6 months earlier, I was in Sfat, and I was listening to a great Kabbalist, Rav Luzer Koenig Zatzal, was giving a class in third meal in Sfat, and it was about two types of dirt: the dirt of the land of Israel and the dirt of outside the land of Israel. And he was talking about humility, because when we pray, we say, may I be like the dust of the earth before all others. Yeah, people should see me as the dust of the earth, meaning no ego. But the rabbi was teaching this teaching, which I didn't understand at the time. And he was teaching this teaching that the dust of outside of Israel is impure dust, whereas the dust in the land of, the earth of the land of Israel is holy dust. It's the holy dirt. And what does it mean? What's the difference in humility? So he said the non-holy dirt is to think you're nothing, which to Jewish people is like spitting in God's face because he's who made you amazing. How you're so amazing is from God. And for you to see yourself as nothing is spitting in God's face, and that's the impure dirt of outside of Israel. That's the false humility that the Gentiles believe in. And whereas the Jewish is the holy dirt of Israel, the holy soil of our country. And that is that you're awesome and God is why. You're awesome and God is why you're awesome. And you have to live that way. And then you get the miracles. Like the miracles of God only hit the person who realizes they're awesome. You know why? Because, see, once you realize you're awesome, like let's take this guy in the back. What's your name?
David.
Let's say David, finally it gets into his bones and his thick head and his stone heart that he's, I don't know if he's got a thick head or, I don't know. But let's just say David, it finally penetrates. David, how awesome you are. Well, then what's going to happen? You're stuck now because now you got to go do awesome things. But the problem is the world's not set up for the awesome David, who's going to do all the things that an awesome person does. Well, but what are you going to do? So you're not going to do the awesome things because the world's not set up for that? The answer is no. You're going to go do those awesome things, and you're going to watch what's called LSD, which stands for large siyata deshmaya. You're going to get divine providence coming your way in a big way, large helpings of divine providence. And then you'll be living in a relationship with God, which is called the world of wonder world, which is called Olam HaPeleh. But all of us people who don't realize how awesome we are, and therefore we live in another world called Olam HaTeva, the world of nature. But God expects all of us to live in the world of wonder, in the wonder world. He expects it from us. That's why whenever you say Modim Anachnu Lach and you mention the wonders that happen b'chol eis erev vocher v'tzorayim, it's all day, all night, in the evening, like it's 24/7 wonders. Well, the only way you experience 24/7 wonders is if you're always pushing the envelope with how awesome you are. If you keep pushing the envelope by doing the things that awesome people do, well, God has to pull out the wonders. And that's why we say every single day we give thanks for the wonders. But you know what? It's a bit of that prayer is in vain. You're using that prayer in vain if you're not getting those wonders because you're just not pushing. You're not pushing through things with your how awesome you are. Anyway, so that was the rabbi's class, was the two types of dirt. The dirt of outside of Israel, which is the false humility of being nothing, which again is spitting in God's face. And then the dirt of the Holy Land. And our by the way, our dirt is so holy. So holy. You know, after I mountain bike and I'm covered in dirt, I'm always reluctant to wash my clothes because of that dirt. I remember once this rabbi Rabbi Moshe Weinberger, the Eish Kodesh from the Five Towns from Woodmere, New York. He was visiting here, and I walked into his third meal. I walked like a half hour to where he's doing a third meal, and he shares this amazing Torah that from the words of Yehuda speaking to Joseph. He says to him, Ki ech ele el avi v'hanar enenu iti. How can I go up to my father, meaning Jacob, when the child isn't with me? Because Joseph, who was the prince of Egypt, they didn't recognize him. He had incarcerated the youngest boy, Benjamin. And Yehuda took responsibility to return Benjamin back to Jacob. And his final plea with Joseph was, Ech ele el avi. How can I go up to my father? Make a chair, please, for this lady. How can I go up to my father when the child isn't with me? And what did Rabbi Weinberger say? He says, how can I go up to my father? That's God. And who's the child? That's your beautiful child, the awesome you, that amazing 2-year-old. It's that toddler full of power and energy and courage and self-expression and love and and health and all the greatness that you are was embodied by you when you were 2 years old. And so he was bringing out this lesson that we all have to retrieve that child inside of us. But there was no dry eye in the room. It was in the dark. I mean, it was like dimly lit. And I was just crying over my child that I had left behind. And everyone in the room was basically crying while he shared his Torahs. When he finished sharing this Torah, I saw there was a little kid laying on his chair, but he was laying on his father's lap, but with his feet on the chair. And it was winter, and there was mud on his shoes. And I was looking at the mud on his shoes, and it made me cry even more. How holy the mud is. That's the mud of Israel. That's a kid playing on the land of Israel, on the soil, that's now caught between the crannies of his sole of his shoe. And that land is so holy. It's so special. Like I want to like scrape a little off and like put it in a little empty out a vitamin capsule and take it every morning